Clear the veterans lobby, but takes the honor and goals of individual recommendation. I'm so sorry. Yeah, no, it's a country with 74 percent like that. Every single one of them. Yeah.
Needed negative? Where's he from? I apologize.
Yeah, for sure. This week.
Perfect.
Oh,
You know.
I did look getting you go over that photo. I think I'm like looking at this one. So the one- Campus, Did you see this Texas or is the judge from Texas?
Yeah.
It looks like a that's cool.
What time you left? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Even shall become an again, not recording. No recording. I shall. It's becoming a super. That's really good.
Good afternoon, folks. Thanks for your attendance. It is a blessing to be Ethiopian. It is a greater blessing to be American. And many people in this room believe, and larger venues, that the greatest blessing of all is to be American and Ethiopian. But today we gather to celebrate that blessing and also to talk about challenges currently faced by Ethiopia and by other residents of the Horn of Africa. Challenges captured by House Resolution 937, which we support and convene today in favor of. So with that, I'll turn over the microphone or the floor to our chairperson, Mesman Tegano of Pennsylvania. Mesman?
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. Before we start the discussion today, we have the Archbishop of Ethiopia, who has been expelled as a result of the atrocities that's being done on Ethiopian Orthodox Christians in Ethiopia. So he has joined us today. I'm going to ask him to give us a blessings and then we'll kick off the meeting. Your Highness, Your Holiness.
በስመ አብ ወወልድ ወመንፈስ ቅዱስ አሐዱ አምላክ አሜን። ቅዱስ እግዚአብሔር ባርከን ቅዱሰን አእምሯችን አብራለን፣ ዕለቲቱንም ሰዓቷን ባርክልን፣ ይችን ሀገርም ባርክልን፣ ቀድስልን፣ መሪዎቿንም ሁሉ የሕዝብን ጉዳይ እንዲሰሙ አእምሯቸውን ክፈትልን። ፈጣሪያችን የእኛንም ችግር በዚች ሰዓት እንድትፈታልን እናልድሃለን። አሜን። አባታችን ሆይ ነው በሰማያት የምትኖር ስምህ ይቀደስ፣ መንግስትህ ትምጣ፣ ፈቃድህ በሰማይ እንደሆነች እንዲሁም በምድር ትሁን። የዕለት እንጀራችንን ስጠን ዛሬ፣ በደላችንን ይቅር በለን እኛም የበደሉንን ይቅር እንደምንል፣ አቤቱ ወደ ፈተና አታግባን ከክፉ አድነን እንጂ መንግስት ያንተ ናትና ኃይል፣ ምስጋና ለዘላለሙ አሜን። እመቤታችን ቅድስት ድንግል ማርያም ሆይ በገብርኤል ሰላምታ ሰላም እንልሻለን። በሐሳብሽ ድንግል ነሽ፣ በሥጋሽም አሸናፊ እግዚአብሔር እናት ሆይ ሰላምታ ላንቺ ይገባሻል። ከሴቶች ሁሉ ተለይተሽ አንቺ የተባረክሽ ነሽ፣ የማኅፀንሽም ፍሬ የተባረከ ነው። ጸጋን የተመላሽ ሆይ ደስ ይበልሽ፣ ልዑል እግዚአብሔር ከአንቺ ጋር ነውና ከተወደደ ልጅሽ ከጌታችን መድኃኒታችን ኢየሱስ ክርስቶስ ዘንድ ይቅርታን ለምኝልን፣ ኃጢአታችንን ያስተሰርይልን ለዘላለሙ አሜን። ቡሩክ እግዚአብሔር ባርከን። God bless America.
Thank you, brother. Good afternoon again. And thank you for taking time to attend this briefing, Crisis in Ethiopia, and its implication for United States foreign policy. My name is Maskin Tagano. I'm with the American Ethiopian Public Affairs Committee. We are a non-partisan organization committed to strengthening U.S.-Ethiopia relationship, guided in democratic governance, human rights, religious freedom, and shared prosperity. We are very grateful to Congressman Barry Carter for sponsoring House Resolution 937. And to Matthew Hubble, I don't know Matthew is here already, to Matthew Hubble for his sustained leadership, engagement on this issue. Ethiopia is home for over 125 million people. For decades, it has been regarded as a strategic anchor in the Horn of Africa and as an important U.S. partner in regional diplomacy, security, coordination, counter-terrorism cooperation, and humanitarian response. Today, however, Ethiopia faces multi-dimensional crises: political, institutional, humanitarian, economic, security-related, that directly intersects with U.S. strategic interest. Our objective today, this afternoon, is not rhetoric, it's clarity. We aim to provide a fact-based overview so congressional officers can assess policy consideration grounded in law, oversight responsibilities, and U.S. national interest. Structure of today's briefing will be as follows. Following my remark, Wasi Tasfa on my side, all the people that you see are board members of the American Ethiopian Public Affairs Committee. She will outline the structural driver of Ethiopia's political and governance breakdown. And following her will be Lili Mulgeta, who will address the persecution of Orthodox Christians, in the broader religious freedom dimension. Euroscoprat will examine humanitarian consequences, and then Yom Fisa will conclude with policy considerations and the relevance of House Resolution 937 within the existing with US legal framework. I will focus my remarks on two fundamental pillars of democratic development: press freedom and electoral integrity. Because when these pillars weaken, broader instability tends to follow. Press freedom. Press freedom is press freedom and credible elections are not abstract ideas. They are early warnings, indicators of state fragility. When transparency erodes, accountability weakens. When peaceful political participation narrows, polarization happens. Today, Ethiopia ranks among the most restrictive media environments globally. In the 2025 World Press Freedom Index, Ethiopia scored 36 out of 100, ranking 145th of 150 countries, classified as very serious press freedom environment. Freedom House similarly categorizes Ethiopia as not free, citing extensive restrictions on digital access and online expression. On the ground, this includes arbitrary arrest and detention of journalists, suspension or revocation of independent media licenses, use of counter-terrorism and emergency laws to prosecute reporting, internet shutdowns and regional communication blackouts during an arrest, widespread intimidation and censorship, reported harassment of exiled journalists, including pressure campaigns targeting digital platforms such as YouTube, and alleged intimidation of family members residing inside Ethiopia. Press freedom monitors, including Reporters Without Borders, have documented multiple journalists detained and under security-related statutes. Recent development further illustrates the fragility of media space, following investigative reporting by Reuters concerning alleged security-related activities inside Ethiopia, including claims of training camps connected to Sudan Rapid Support Forces. Ethiopian authorities suspended Reuters accreditation. The report prompted concern from US state lawmakers, including Chairman of the Senate, Foreign Relations Committee, who raised alarm regarding the security implications. Regardless of underlying geopolitical claims, the suspension of an international news agency following investigative reporting highlights a deeper issue: diminishing tolerance for independence, scrutiny of matters on national and regional importance. When we control information becomes a governing mechanism, human rights violations become harder to document, policy decisions harder to evaluate, and public trust increasingly fragile. The electoral integrity and civic space, Ethiopia. Press repression does not occur in isolation. It intersects directly with restrictive on political competition and civic participation. The government of Ethiopia has announced plans to proceed with national elections. However, the credibility of those elections is currently under significant scrutiny. According to opposition parties, civil society organizations, and public reporting, more than 300 prominent political figures, including opposition leaders, regional officials, and sitting members of parliament, are currently in jail. A significant number of significant members are affiliated with Amhara opposition movements, although politicians from the southern regions and Oromia have also reported being held in government's custody. Many detainees have been held without timely access to due process protection, Concerns have also been raised regarding the detention of sitting parliamentarians, despite constitutional provision providing legislative immunity. At the same time, a large portion of the country remains affected by active armed conflict or significant insecurity. Fighting continues in Amhara region, armed conflict persists in Oromia, Afar, Gambella, Somalia regions. Tensions in Tigray remain fragile, with reports of political fragmentation and political renewed instability. Under these conditions, the practical requirements for credible national elections, security, open political participation, freedom of movement, independent media access, and meaningful opposition engagement are difficult to meet. Elections are not defined solely by holding vote. They require inclusive competition, equal legal protection, access to voters, public confidence, and impartial implementation. When electoral process occur amid widespread detention of opposition figures and ongoing armed conflict, questions about legitimacy are unavoidable. And when ballots are perceived as ineffective instruments of peaceful accountability, grievance risk shifting from democratic channels to instability. Strategic importance in congressional oversight. Ethiopia is a sovereign nation. The United States does not govern Ethiopia, nor should it direct its internal political affairs or processes. However, Congress has clear constitutional authority over U.S. foreign assistance, security cooperation, trade policy, sanctions, and oversight of executive branch implementations. When developments in a strategically important country affect U.S. interests, humanitarian priorities, and economic interests, Congress has a responsibility to evaluate how American engagement is structured. Ethiopia sits at the center of the Horn of Africa, a region vital to counter-terrorism coordination, Red Sea maritime security, regional stability. And stability there does not remain contained. It fuels displacement, strengthens security partnership, and creates opening for external actors in a strategic sensitive area. Congressional oversight in this context is not about managing Ethiopian internal affairs. It's about ensuring the US policy tools, assistance, security cooperation, trade preferences, diplomatic engagement, and sanction authorities are aligned with American law and long-term national interest. While credible evidence exists of serious human rights abuses or corruption, existing US legal framework, including the Global Magnitsky Act, provide mechanisms to impose targeted sanctions, restrict financial access, and deny safe haven. These tools are designed to deter abuse, protect the integrity of the US finance system, and reinforce accountability under international norms. House 937 reflects that oversight role. It articulates congressional priorities and reinforces accountability within the framework of the existing US law. Ethiopia stands at critical juncture. The trajectory it takes will affect regional security, humanitarian stability, and broader strategic competition in the Horn of Africa. Congress' role is supervisory, not interventionist. Ensures that American engagement remains principled, lawful, and aligned with the US interest. In closing, we respectfully encourage members of the staff to review the the Human Health Resolution 937 with this constitutional and strategic framework to maintain informed and consistent oversight and to ensure that transparency, accountability, and long-term stability remain central to US engagement with Ethiopia. My colleagues will go in detail. I thank you for your time, thank you for your attention, and thank you for your service. I now turn over the briefing to my colleague, Wasi Tasfa.
Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. I am also very, very happy to be here today to discuss with you the crisis and the situation in Ethiopia. So when we look at what Ethiopia is like right now, we ask ourselves, how did we get here? How did a country where people of different religions, Christians and Muslims, for thousands of years lived together, where people of different ethnic groups lived together and tribalism was never an issue. Ethiopia was not the country where tribalism was an issue. It became one where ethnic cleansing and tribalism are now rampant. So the basis for all this is the constitution, which was imposed on the Ethiopian people by the Tigray People's Liberation Front, 1994, some 30 years ago. So under the TPLF, ethnic-based federalism became the constitution, and the country was divided as such into ethnic enclaves. Ethiopia is a country where about 80 different ethnic groups reside. And what happened under the TPLF and what is now also continuing under Abiy Ahmed is that the people have been put to 8 enclaves. Now, if you look at the map over there or behind me, the top map, you would see the old map of Ethiopia, the imperial map of Ethiopia, where we have 14 provinces, including Eritrea, but here it turns out. And people live in these different provinces. I mean, you could be Amara, Oromo, Tigray, Gurage, you can live everywhere. In some places, you have more of one group than another. Just like I live in California, you have a lot more Latinos in California, probably, than you do here. I don't know. I'm just comparing. And so that was the reality of Ethiopia. So once the TPLF took over and the Abiy Ahmed took over, this was not the case anymore. So they said, you're Oromo, this is where you live. You are Amara, this is where you live. And so if you are of that major ethnic group, you got whatever resources that are supposed to be had in that area. And if you're a minority, you were already repressed from the get-go. So what this did is that resources, government resources, started going to the majority group. And so repression and oppression of the minorities started happening. And what also happened is, and I think you can go to the next slide, because I'm just. And so what also happened is the federal state and the state would have conflicts depending on who's stronger. So right now, if you go to Addis Ababa, the rule of law, if you're caught for anything, done a crime or whatever, or not, and the judiciary lets you, the state, then the federal can come and put you back in prison. So there's a lot of disorder, and the rule of law is not being protected. And so there's an erosion of national unity and widespread instability, which is really getting worse by the day as we speak. And then, of course, if you go to the different regions, there's not only is there security vacuum fragmentation, you will find that beyond the major cities, there's no federal rule. There's no, for instance, if you want to travel to Ethiopia, let's say you want to go to a resort or whatever, you have to fly there. You cannot drive through because there's rampant kidnapping for ransoms, and all kinds of violence can happen to you. And so, and then also there's also a lot more border conflicts because people are wanting to have territories that they assume will bring them more benefits and what have you. So there's a total destabilized situation because of these artificial ethnic borders. And in particular, what we do want to say is that in the Amhara region in particular, the government not only is attacking the people and also have ethnic cleansing going, but bombardments and what have you are happening. And schools are mostly closed. Most of the time, children do not go to school. So it's been some years now since this crisis is happening, as well as healthcare crisis. For instance, 60% of the hospitals, or 50% of the hospitals and healthcare systems have been destroyed under this regime. So let's go to the next one. So I'm just picking out some things. We cannot talk about everything that's happening under this rule, but there is a concentration of militarization of executive power, culture of impunity. There's rampant corruption, extrajudicial killings, arbitrary arrests and detentions, destruction of institutions of faith, and I know Lily's going to talk more about that, and denial of due process, reinforced by repeated states of emergency and military operations, especially in the Amhara region, but also in parts of Oromia and also in Tigray. And executive power is concentrated. The prime minister wields authority, the federal government, and he's also chairs the council of ministers. So he's the de facto dictator. And defense forces are now increasingly dominating civilian affairs, calling for restructuring of institutions along military lines and policing the state, again, particularly in Amhara. So the military has been ethnicized, especially the leadership. In the past, under the TPLF, it was Tigrayan leadership, and now under Abiy's prosperity, it's mostly Oromo leadership. So I just want to show you a video, but before we go to the video, I want you to look at the picture of the sky. He is Field Marshal Jula. He is really the head of the Ethiopian military. I think he's the worst butcher and terrorist, and I hope at some point the Magnitsky Act will be taken upon him, that he would be held accountable. So just remember that face. And could you then show the video, please? That's where he talks about drones, and there's a subtitle in English, and you can also ask us later on. Oh, well, went so well. We'll practice it. So, yeah. So if you can read the subtitle, speak of others.
እኮ የተሰራው ለጦርነት ለውጊያ ነው። ድሮን የተሰራው የገዛ ነው ልንዋጋበት ነው እንጂ ድሮን አለን እያልን በሚዲያ ልንገልጸው የጦር መሳሪያ ልክ እንደ ክላሽ የአቅሙን ይሰራል፣ ሌላውም የአቅሙን ይሰራል። ድሮንም የራሱን ስራ ድሮን እኛ የምንጠቀመው በስብስብ ዓላማ ነው። ወታደራዊ አባባል ስብስብ ዓላማ የሚባል ነገር አለ። ስብስብ ዓላማ ማለት የጠላት ጠንካራ ቋጠሮ ማለት ነው። የጽንፈኛው ስብስብ ስናገኝ እንመታለን።
So he's practically drawing what he can do with it.
መሳሪያ ይመርጥለት ነው። አይ ድሮን ተውና ክላሽ ለክላሽ የሚጨም ነው እያለ የጠላት ስብስብ ሲገኝ ግን ይተኮሳል። ደግሞ ድሮንም ይሄን አይል ተጠቅመናል ብዬ ልወስድ ባለን አቅም ልክ ኤክሰፕሽናል ምርጥ ዓላማ ሲገኝ ግን አንዳንድ ጊዜ ህዝቡ ግን ለህዝቡ ማሳስበው ነገር አለ።
This is very important to say about the people.
ልጆቻችሁ ይሄ ምንድን ነው የሚፎክር የሚሸልል ጽንፈኛ አይተው እሱ ጋር እንዳለ ልጆቻችሁን ያዙ። ሰማንያ ክላሽ ልቀም ነው እያለ
So you kind of get the idea of who he is and what he wants to do. And we'll just go to the next clip, which really shows what happened with these drones. What is suspected to have been a drone. Sorry. So, targeted the town on Sunday morning. Local medics put their toll at least 30 deaths, but some Ethiopian media have estimated it to be as high as 70, with dozens of fatalities not reported to hospitals. People are also reportedly dying from a lack of oxygen, which is still not. There's still not been any official death toll, but many civilians have been killed. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission has called on the government to stop the arrest and persecution of ethnic Amarans.
It was the aftermath of a deadly drone strike in Ethiopia's northwestern Amhara by Abiy Ahmed. On the morning of October 14, 2020, the Ethiopian government carried out drone helicopter airstrikes near Bahir Dar, targeting civilians in southern Asheta and northern Mecha areas of the Amhara region. Starting at approximately 8:30 a.m., the attack left significant damage to civilian establishments, marking a continuation of the escalating violence. Eyewitnesses report that repeated drone attacks critical damage to schools, administrative offices, health clinics, and homes. This follows a pattern of increasing drone usage by Ethiopian government forces, which has raised alarms over civilian casualties. In a previous report by
Okay. Yeah, so if you look at the reports, even international reports, ACLED, which is Armed Conflict Location and Event Data, reported since August 2023, they said 73 air and drone strikes have been executed in the Amhara region. And ACLED identified Ethiopia as one of 6 countries in Africa employing drones on its own people. But according to local sources, and in 2025 alone, the numbers of drone attacks in Amhara regions were over 300. In April of 2025, drones killed just at 100 people who were in the vicinity of a school repairing a fence under the pretext that they were fine. Well, that's what he said. He said, if you gather together, you're either feeding or eating or planning. So anything, anybody can be a victim. And most drone victims are typically people celebrating baptisms, weddings, festivities, and other gatherings, including school activities. So international organizations like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, they've all recorded the extensive abuses, and also BBC. So with this, I want us to go to the next. This is a clip that I took when I went to Ethiopia to talk about. Okay. This is about what IDBs in Ethiopia.
አስራ ሁለቱንም ቁስለኛ እያሳመሙ በቤት ውስጥ ነው የምገኘው። በመኖሪያ ቤት ተቃጥሏል። ያው በደባል ቤት ነው የምንኖረው። ልጅ ሞታለች። የአስር ዓመት ልጅ አማቴ ሞተዋል። ያው ጎረቤቶቼ ሞተዋል። ያው አብረን ተሰባስበን እና ይኸው አሁን በችግር ላይ ነኝ። ቤቴም ተዘግቷል።
This is the second clip. It's 2 clips again.
እንግዲህ ግማሹም 4 ወር ግማሹም 8 ወር መስከረም ላይ ነው።
ልጆች ቤተሰብ ይዛችሁ ደህና ዋላችሁ? መቼም እግዚአብሔር አንድ መድኃኒት እያዘጋጀልን መሆን አለበት እንጂ እንዴት ነው መኝታችሁ ምናችሁ ፍራሽ ምናምን አላችሁ? Okay, this really makes me emotional because I'm the one who went there and interviewed these people and and the woman walking next to me that was in the city of Atayi. This town had been at that time attacked 8 times by both government forces and the Oromo militia. And now it's been 14 times that they've been attacked. So 1/4 of the city has been destroyed, 1,539 homes destroyed, 50 businesses, including banks, demolished, 303 people killed, 269 injured, and as well as many displaced. And they don't even sleep there. They go and hide in the forest to go to sleep, because they're so scared that at night they might come and attack them again. And the last attack was 2025. That's to the city, and that woman that was walking next to me telling us about the 12 members that she's taking care of. The other one, the women that I was talking to, these are women that were in the Debre Birhan IDP camp. This camp had about 23,000 people that went through it. At the time when I went 5 years ago, and this one camp, and this particular one where you see where the women were in the pictures, the children to the left, in one of them there were 600 people. Now the 600, 400 were children. And what is really heartbreaking, and I really get emotional about that, is the harshness of how they were living. I mean, and the violence in those camps was really, really horrible. But they sent them back. That's what makes it current. They sent these people right back to the place where their families were killed. These 400 children, a lot of them were with other women because their parents had been killed. And so they returned them to the place where they fled from. And a lot of the young men ran away, and now they're saying 360 individuals, which are mostly the women and the children, are in precarious situation. And we have no contact with them, we have no access to them, but we know that that's what is happening right now. So just skip this one because I think we're still talking. So these are political prisoners. And I just wanted to show you pictures of some of them. I will talk about 3 of them afterwards, but I just noticed on the second line, the guy to the second line, second man to the left, I think the one with the glasses, his name is Professor Sisa. And I saw him, I met him when I went to Debre Birhan. He was the one who took us to these camps where we were giving support, and they put him in jail as a terrorist. So he's also in prison amongst all these journalists, parliamentarians, and what have you. So next slide. So I took out 3 of those prisoners just to illustrate who they are and what they mean to us. The first one is Christian Tadela. He is a parliamentarian, and they're supposed to have immunity, but they just dragged him and put him in jail. And he has chronic illness, and he's in prison now. He's been there now 3-4 years now, if I'm not mistaken. The second one, that's Mascaramava. I met Mascara when I went to Ethiopia at the time. At that time, she was a young professor. She was so brilliant and so wonderful. I attended one of her lectures, and I was so impressed by her. I invited her to lunch, and we had lunch together. And I came back to the States and put on social media, she's the one to follow. Now she's in prison, also as a terrorist, according to them. When they put her through her in jail, her daughter was a year old. Now I think that child is about 4 years old. So Muskaram is also in prison. The third guy, Tadio Stantu, he is from the south of Walaita, and he is a journalist and historian. And his only crime was he did not propagate the government propaganda of demonization of the Amhara people. He told history the way he knew it. They threw him in jail also. He is in his 80s. Seriously, I'm just wondering if these people can survive this imprisonment. So this is just a face of some of the prisoners. The next page, this is a letter that the prisoners, the Amara, 29 Amara prisoners, smuggled out of the prison, which is it's called Awash Arba military camp. Awash Arba, how many of you have heard of the Danakil Depression, the Danakil Desert, where you have the sulfuric waters? It is the hottest area in the world, in the earth. Awash Arba is not too far away from this area, so it is a very, very hot, very dangerous place. So that's where their prison is. And this is an excerpt from the letter. Even at this time, we continue to face egregious human rights violations while detained in the Awash Arba military camp, including deprivation of medical care, ethnic-based attacks, intense respiratory hazards, deprivation of food, deliberate starvation, and clean water, and overall systematic dehumanization and demeaning mistreatment. Going further, we have faced a premeditated campaign of systematic physical and psychological torture sponsored by the government. So this is a letter they wrote 3 months after being in prison. I think 1 or 2 of them are out, but the others are still there. Okay, so like I said, I'm just picking out pieces of what it looks like in Ethiopia right now. So now I want to talk a little bit about gender-based violence, because it is being used as a tool of repression, tool of warfare by the government and militias, especially in Amara, Oromia, Tigray, and Afar. Everywhere where there's war, that's what's, gender-based violence is happening to women. The BBC reported that in one area, 2,697 have been raped from July 18, 2023 to May 2025. And 45% of these cases were children under the age of 18. Amnesty International 2021, Ethiopian Human Rights Commission 2023 documented a pattern of ethnic targeted sexual violence with Amara women disproportionately affected. And it's progressively increasing. The UN International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia reported in 2022, 1,000 women in Tigray, 2,000 women in Amara, and Afar regions were victimized during the same period. And so, so survivors talk about the brutality and, rapes, and these things are happening in front of witnesses, families, children, wives of clergy are also being raped in front of their family, which is really trauma for the whole family, shame. I interviewed a few rape victims, and most of them were saying, I don't want to go back home. They won't let me die. I'm trying to kill myself. I don't know why they want me to do that. So the shame is also there. So that's why we do not know. Really, we don't have the real numbers of how many women are affected through this. Okay, so let's go to the last video. Thank you. Up this one.
Very proud to be in one related being after you. I make sure no one knows besides my family.
It would have been better. They had killed me.
Paramilitary groups jointly called the FANO accused the government of committing genocide against the Amhara people, something the government denies. In recent years, the Ethiopian government has faced uprisings in the country's most powerful and populous regions, Tigray, Oromia, and now Amhara.
During market days, we sell homemade local beer. The local militia comes for a drink. In the early hours of January 5th, heavy fighting broke out. Government soldiers came house to house searching for the FANO. 3 soldiers came to our house. They were army soldiers wearing uniforms. One stood guard at the door. to enter the house. They asked, "Do the foreign militias come here?" I said, "Yes." How can we deny it? One soldier grabbed my leg. My 8-year-old niece was crying. I begged them not to hurt me, but their hearts didn't pity me. They raped me in front of my niece.
We're receiving a growing number of rape cases. The victims arrive scared, stressed, and deeply fearful of infectious diseases. Many are trembling, too intimidated to even speak. They rarely pursue legal action, nor do they believe their attackers will be brought to justice.
Since that day, I hardly go out of the house.
I was ashamed. I thought people would talk.
All I did was cry.
After a few months, I started vomiting. My friends suspected something and took me to the clinic. I found out I was pregnant.
Many rape victims become pregnant. By the time they reach us, it's often too late. Knowing they'll return to the exact same place, they hesitate to disclose who assaulted them. But it's everyone. The conflict has opened the gate wide open.
Survivors who have gone through this life-changing experience deserve justice. There is no meaningful effort to bring perpetrators into justice. They're still fighting, they're still out there with no consequences for what they've done. Survivors are punished, and whoever reports or exposes the truth is also punished. So we should treat them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My name is Lily Mitchell, and thank you again for coming. I'm an advocate for human rights and also part of AEPAC. I'll be addressing one of the most critical part of this briefing, which is the unprecedented attacks on Ethiopian Orthodox Church, a threat of religious freedom, stability, and human rights. As you have heard in the previous segment, there were many serious alarming incidents of violence, politically charged massacres, an enormous record of disregard for humanity by the state government, along with several extremist groups causing much suffering in Ethiopia today. An additional layer of human rights violation that has been rising with intense frequency over the past 2 decades is the persecution of Orthodox Christians and the consistent attack on the church all around the country. As the earlier speaker noted, documenting these atrocities is very, very difficult. It's very dangerous. Journalists are imprisoned, silenced, and forced to take extraordinary risks to simply report news. Next slide. Okay. So why this matters to the U.S., especially with a lot going on in the world. Ethiopia, as you may know, is one of the oldest Christian nations in the world. It traces its roots to the inception of Christianity, making it one of the oldest Christian traditions still active today. It has very strong biblical connection. Just to kind of throw some facts, UNESCO recognized a lot of different aspects of the church, from the rock on churches of Lalibela, carved directly into the rock in the 12th century. We also designated by the World Heritage Site as a World Heritage Site in 1978. In addition, several celebrations also recognized by UNESCO, such as the Dumgat holiday, the Ethiopian Epiphany. It's also widely believed Ethiopia is the guardian of some of the most sacred relics, including the Ark of the Covenant, which traditionally contains the tablet of the Ten Commandments. From a regional instability standpoint, the religion represents 65% of the population, which is a big size of the country. And the church is not just a religious institution, it's one of the most stabilizing forces in the Horn of Africa. And more importantly, US is legally committed to defend religious freedom globally under the benchmark set under International Religion Freedom Act, IRFA, and the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, USCRIF. And as you would see in the next few slides, it's just the attack is unprecedented. It's really horrific. And we think the world, and especially the US, should really pay attention and do something. The next slide is just to give you additional historical background. From Aksum to the Solomonic dynasty, which ends in 1974, Ethiopia remained as a Christian state. Aside from Christianity being a state religion, the Orthodox Church also contributed significantly to the Ethiopian society, introducing the language of Ge'ez, which is part of the Ethiopian Bible. The church is also originator of the Ethiopian calendar, and so many different impacts to the community. And with the end of the monarchy in 1974, there's a significant attack by different governments, and I'll share that in the next few slides. So the first one, 1974, with the Derg regime, it had a policy of states of atheism. So after the assassination of Emperor Haile Selassie, the royal family, and the government, followed with the assassination of Orthodox Patriarch Abuna Theophilos in 1979. So that's one example of how the church faced some challenges. If you go to the next one. Similarly with TPLF, the Tigrayan People Liberation Front, after the overthrow of the Derg in 1991, we had the expulsion of Patriarch Abuna Morgorios, who was forced to abdicate his long-term appointment and replaced by Abuna Paulos. And we had some scattered attacks in the country during this time, but you go to the next. Nothing compared to what we've been facing under Abiy Prosperity Party. What we're seeing is just really sad. There's an alarming level of attack on the Ethiopian Orthodox Church under Abiy Ahmed Prosperity Party, estimating over 1,000 church being destroyed and damaged. Unprecedented and coordinated campaign of aggression. These attacks appear strategically aiming at dismantling and destabilizing the church influence and infrastructure. The violence and hostility is not confined in a single region. I think there is this perception it's only happening in Amara region, but it's actually happening everywhere. And despite these incidents, there's really no accountability. Next slide. And there are some additional indicators that you would see. Like I said before, the Ethiopian church existed as an autonomous spiritual entity. With Abiy regime, the government is involved, even removing the leadership, dismantling the leadership, as you would see on the right of the picture. These are appointed leaders that the government puts power. They're specifically coming from the Oromo region. With that, the fracture happened with the unity of the church, which is now divided by ethnicity. And intimidation, discriminatory policies, forced displacement, leadership in exile, destruction of churches and ancient artifacts, killing of followers and leaders, coordinated and continuing attack has spread out throughout the country. And there's really no accountability. They're just blaming others and just doing a bunch of cover-ups. For the next few slides, I'll be sharing some, what is the impact of the society? Undermining peace building effort, the church has historically played a role in mediating conflicts, promoting reconciliation. It's weakened leadership and internal division, such as the bishop acting more as political figures than spiritual leaders. Loss of cultural heritage, ancient churches like Devra Damo, built in the 6th century, irreplaceable manuscripts, relics, architecture. Their destruction erodes Ethiopia's historical legacy and weakens its national pride. Also fueling destruction of the churches in various regions has intensified ethnic Grievances, when sacred sites are bombed and looted, it's not just physical damage. It is symbolic assault that deepens mistrust between the communities. And now I'm going to share some examples, and these are just samples. The atrocity is just it's a lot. It's everywhere. It's daily. You hear the news every day. But just to kind of give you a taste of what's happening, this is one in Ethiopia, Somali region. It happened in 2018. Security forces came to the site of Sete zone, reportedly failed to stop the attack, and the church burned to the ground. What's the next one? This is another one. It's a monastery of Devra Elias, which is a very historical site, founded in 1474. Only with this attack, 570 victims, all Ethiopian Orthodox Christians. So it's very sad. What's the next one? Another one went to Arsema Church. It's in the Oromia region. In October 2023, it's an RC zone of Oromia. Saw a surge of targeted attack against Ethiopian Orthodox Christian. These incidents are not isolated. They're part of multi-year pattern of violence in the region. By the late 2023, over 190 Orthodox Christians were killed. And you can see their picture. That's kind of what we're sharing at the bottom. That's the next one. Another monastery, monastery of Sekwala, a 12th century monastery. And just to give you an example, this same site had several attacks. I'm just sharing two examples. The first one is February 2024, and the second one is June 2025. With the first attack, 4 priests, Father Abba Tekla Mariam Asrat, Father Kidane Mariam Dalahun, Father Gebra Mariam Abbebe, and Hala Mariam Wandasembet, they kidnapped all 4 of them. They humiliated them. They murdered, dismembered their body, and made it such a huge tragic occurrence that happened. Another attack happened again in June 2025. Between June 20th to 22nd, 2025, several monks were killed, including Father Hike, who was assaulted and killed near the city, and then others were abducted by militants operating in that region. This is just a picture to show you the outcry of the community, some of the destruction of the churches, and then at the bottom you see some of the demonstration of the community. Again, this is just a picture to show how it's everywhere. One of them is in Somalia region, the next one is Devra Elias, and then another one, Nazareth, Oromia, which is totally different locations, just to kind of give you an idea of what's happening. This one is Shashamene, February 2023. I just want to highlight that what the government does, some of the pattern is they shut down social media. Like there's no Facebook, there's no YouTube, TikTok, just to control the narrative. During this attack, it's not just the church leaders too, as you see on the picture, they're the members of the church that are also killed. So with this incident, 8 Orthodox Christians died with gunshot wounds and beatings. Another example is Gadet J town in Amhara, Ethiopia. Another pattern you would see when the government is fighting with the Fano fighters in that region. As a retaliation, what they do is kill the Orthodox members. So this is an example where 11 plus civilians were killed during that incident. More recently, the RC Sharka zone killing. This was very tragic. You probably have seen it throughout various news media. BBC and others reported this. Over 51 people were killed between October to November 2025. And this included a kid, 2-year-old kid, and then an elderly in his 70s. So if they're not really, they don't care. They just kill anybody. So this was, and then as you can see at the bottom, the World Council of Churches denounced this as well. And I just want to show you an example. This same site was attacked just the last couple of days ago. This happened very, very recently, so 2-3 days ago, right? So just to show you, about 30 Christians were killed while they were attending church service at 2 churches. So But this is just the people that were killed. That's nice. Why the American Ethiopian diaspora is alarmed? I mean, there's really no surprise. Like I said earlier, 65% of the population is Orthodox Christian, including here in the diaspora. The Ethiopian, the majority of Ethiopians are members of the Orthodox Church. They send financial and humanitarian support, and they view this action as an attack of their identity and their families. So it's very alarming, and really hoping Congress will act on this. And what we are pleading for Congress to act. Why? Because we cannot afford to wait. In the past, we've done a similar House resolution of 128. I think it was 2018. It was one of the most effective modern U.S. resolution on Ethiopia, and it really had a great impact. So we're hoping with this new resolution, we'll do the same. So that's a good thing. And finally, I'll just leave you with a quote. It was our well-known emperor, Emperor Haile Selassie. You probably know about him. He had a saying, which is, religion is personal, the nation is for all. The state must protect all religion equally. Faith is a matter of individual conscience. With that, I'll pass it to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. My name is Jeremy. I am a humanitarian activist and part of a Black group. And thank you for coming today to listen, to lend an ear. We appreciate it. I hope so far you've learned a lot. We're not even scratching the surface, we're touching the surface. But we wanted to give you just a high level update of what's happening, just so that way you can have a little bit of understanding. I know the attention that's given to Africa in general is very minimal. So we're hoping that you'll be a champion for us in some way, small or big, in whatever way you can contribute. So that way the suffering of the people that are experiencing this feel a little bit hurt, right? A little bit seen. And I think it's a big deal to be able to be heard or to be seen, right? So we appreciate you. I'm going to touch high level about, I'm a humanitarian advocate, so I think you've heard a lot about the religious, the weaponization of abusing women, and just so many aspects. So I'm going to just high level give you data of what has been at the beginning of this chaos to current, so that way you kind of have high level, this is what it looks like when we're looking at the data. So Ethiopian worsening humanitarian crisis from 2018 to current. So the Ethiopian humanitarian crisis has intensified dramatically over the past 6 years, with escalation of beyond capacity to existing response system from 2018 to 2020. Approximately only 7.9 million people require humanitarian assistance. 7.9 million is literally the population size of many countries in this world. So driven largely due to drought, displacement, and devastating locust outbreak that compounded the environment stress back in 2018. The situation deteriorated sharply from 2021 onward, as conflict-driven displacement, severe access restriction, government failure pushed in the number of people in need to 16.5 million, making a decisive turning point in crisis. So this is back in 2021. So we went from 7.9 million to now 16.5, and this is back in 21. So the continued escalation of conflict has been the central factor driving the deepening human rights crisis. Violence and insecurity have persisted displacement, restriction access, disruption of essential services have pushed needs sharply upward. These conflicts-related impact drove humanitarian requirement even higher in 2022 and 2023, with around 20 million people needing assistance each year. So we went from 7.9 to 16.5, and now this is 2022, 2023. We're now at 20 million people needing assistance in Ethiopia. By 2024, the number has risen approximately 21 million, reflecting severe and sustained toll that prolonged conflict has taken on food security and household resilience. From 2018 to 2024, humanitarian needs rose by a staggering 166%. This sharp escalation reflects a clear, deeply concerning trend. Ethiopia's human right emergency is not only persistent, but rapidly worsening, with millions more people being pushed into increasingly severe human crisis. The population size in Ethiopia is greater than the European Union, all combined together. So that can kind of give you a picture of the number of the population that's in that area. Not to mention that Ethiopia has been, for the last several decades, one of the stabilizing factor in the east of Africa. So with current conflicts in Sudan, with what's going on in Eritrea, all of the areas, it's a very concerning situation that's happening. So the longer this escalates, the impact is very terrifying to me, because if Ethiopia falls or things get worse, then that whole east of Africa or Horn of Africa, what we refer to, it will be in a greater danger. Let me just next slide. So over 21 million as the state stands current, that's 16% of the population in Ethiopia, faces severe food insecurity according to USAID and United Nations assessments. More than 4.5 million people are internally displaced due to conflict and insecurity. Humanitarian access remains restricted by the government, mainly in northern Ethiopia. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch reported women and children are suffering grave impact, facing intensifying violence, acute hunger, raising a toll of death. In the Amhara region, over 3,600 schools remain closed, leaving 4.6 million students out of school for the last 2 years. Now it's actually 3 years. So U.S. strategic interest in preventing Ethiopia's crisis from worsening is one is regional stability, which I shared earlier, that Ethiopia has been a stabilizing factor in a way, and that seems to be deteriorating. And with what's going on in Sudan, it's even a greater risk for East of Africa or Horn of Africa. Humanitarian migration presence. Further crisis could drive a large scale of displacement, increasing global humanitarian burden, and then ongoing violence identified by Amnesty International, United Nations, Human Rights Watch, demonstrate that preventing further decline is a core U.S. strategic policy. So just in conclusion, you can kind of see the increasing trend of the humanitarian crisis, and it continues to get worse and worse and worse. And so for the last at least 3 years, the farmers, Ethiopia is mainly driven by agriculture. They have not been able to farm because of the war, because of the drone attacks. The government has used drone against its own civilians. I feel that's the only government in this world currently that is using drones against its own people. And I know it's not talked about a lot, but to me, it's mind-blowing the fact that a government uses drone against its own civilians. And these are civilians whose houses are made of dirt and woods, like from the forest. We're not talking about some nice building that's made of, stronger stills and things like that. He is attacking, he's spending millions of dollars to buy drones so he can attack farmers who don't have radios, who don't have television, who don't have iPhones or Samsung phones. These are really people in population that are living at the very worst human conditions that we as Americans can testify to. So it's really saddened, and I don't think it's given the attention that it deserves. And I think this has been ongoing for far too long now, to where we're currently. And I know there's a lot going on in the world, so maybe it's not one of the top news reported type of situation there, but we could all be a voice and we could all be advocates in this. And so I encourage you today that as you walk out of this room, that you be a champion for HR Resolution 934 and really help us raise awareness about truly what's going on. And if you're interested in learning more, of course, you can visit our website, and we're willing to provide
pictorial sequence.
Thank you, Jay. I'm Officer I'm a human rights advocate, member of EPAC. I'll summarize what was presented today. It was just amazing. So much information, so much evidence has been provided, and all of them came from very, very reliable, credible sources. I will also go through our ask to the U.S. Congress. I want to first say a few things about the U.S.-Ethiopia relationships. It's been over 100 years of friendship and also cooperation. The first official diplomatic relationship between Ethiopia and the United States was in 1903. And at that time, Ethiopia was the only independent African country, having defeated Italy in the Battle of Adwa, was 130 years ago. First Black nation defeating a white European colonial power. So it was very significant. Adwa is our pride. Adwa is a symbol of freedom. Adwa is a symbol of independence for Ethiopians, Africans, and all people in the world. So, yes, today is the day, 130 years ago, we celebrate. The battle actually happened on March 1st, which is yesterday, but then the celebration of the world, millions of people celebrating Adwa on today. So, a historic day that we are providing you with this mind-boggling and cruel atrocities committed by the Ethiopian people, just like Jerry said, that the Ethiopian government bombing and attacking its own citizens with drones and with heavy weapons. And it's so sad that we have come to this point, and the world is silent. What is really amazing is that all these people, innocent civilians, women, children who don't even know who they are being attacked and killed because of their ethnicity. Ethnic cleansing in Ethiopia, but nobody talks about it. So I just want to say something about the establishment of diplomatic relationships between the United States and Ethiopia, the only independent African nation at the time, was a powerful statement at that time of support by the US for anti-colonialism and African sovereignty. The picture of Emperor Haile Selassie when he visited the United States in 1963, and during President Kennedy and Mrs. Kennedy, they welcomed him warmly. The American people welcomed him warmly. So, over the last 100 years, Ethiopia and the United States had a cooperation, including military partnership, education. Many Ethiopians were educated in the United States. So we have about 1 million Ethiopian Americans now living in the United States. Very hardworking people, peaceful people. And you can see around Washington, D.C., so many restaurants, churches, over 51 churches around here. So Ethiopians are pro-United States. They are peaceful people, hardworking people, industrious people. So the U.S. actually helped establish one of the Ethiopian alliance that helped establish it, and it's now one of the best allies in Africa and one of the best in the world as well. Ethiopian troops fought alongside U.S. forces during the Korean War, demonstrating strong military partnership. Ethiopia also contributed troops to peacekeeping and stabilizing efforts in Congo, aligned with U.S. interests. This history reflects a deep foundation of cooperation, shared interest, and mutual support. Now, I want to talk about what is concerning us, the Ethiopian diaspora. Ethiopia is one of the largest, most influential countries in Africa and strategically located in the Horn of Africa. The Ethiopian people are strongly pro-United States. However, the current Ethiopian government, led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, is increasingly acting contrary to U.S. strategic interests. This shift is occurring despite receiving billions in financial support from the United States, the World Bank, and the IMF. The Ethiopian government is getting financial
support from the West and buying arms from China and Russia and killing its own people with drones and heavy guns. This is taxpayers' money being used to kill civilians. Ethiopia's recent membership in BRICS has signals a significant geopolitical realignment. The government is enabling expanded Chinese influence in Africa, raising concerns about regional stability and long-term strategic alignment. Here's a picture of the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. He is actively seeking friendship and also fostering a friendship with China and Russia and buying arms. And there's actually China has now replaced the United States and the Western Europe as the biggest trade partner in Ethiopia and expanding into Africa. So he is enabling this expansion. So what's the risk of the state? We are worried about the risk of state collapse and humanitarian crisis. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government has plunged Ethiopia into a cycle of continuous conflict, resulting in a devastating losses of life, widespread destruction of livelihoods, and the depletion of national resources. Active military operations currently underway in the country's two largest regions, placing millions of civilians, particularly within the Amhara region, where the government is targeting civilians with drones and heavy guns. Tens of thousands have died and billions of property damage, schools, hospitals, infrastructure totally destroyed by drones. In the Amhara region, Fano, the popular freedom fighters or militia, controls now over 50% of the rural area and gaining ground. And the government only controls major cities. The collapse of central authority in Ethiopia would trigger one of the largest refugee crises in modern history, even bigger than Yemen, Somalia, Sudan combined, because Ethiopia's population is very, very large. Neighboring countries already economically and politically strained would face overwhelming population inflows. With the escalating regional and global security, the threats that destabilize Ethiopia would create fertile ground for extremist groups, potentially more radical and entrenched than those previously seen in the Horn of Africa. Regional instability would expand beyond Ethiopia, threatening broader African and international security interests. The Red Sea and the Gulf al-Mandab maritime corridor, the Red Sea, of a critical global trade route, would face increasing insecurity with serious implications for global commerce and energy supplies. Over $1 trillion in goods every year passed through the al-Mandab. God forbid there is conflict, and God forbid there are some terrorist groups takes over that area. The mainly all traffic will stop, and the price of oil, the price of gold will skyrocket. Everybody will be. Having said that, I like to go through some of the summary of atrocities committed by the Abiy Ahmed government. Arbitrary arrests that my previous speakers have talked about, tens of thousands of political, nobody even knows the numbers, but estimated tens of thousands of political prisoners, including intellectuals, journalists, and parliamentarians. Mass killings and forced displacement, widespread human suffering, destabilized entire regions. Attack on the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, over 1,000 churches destroyed, as previously mentioned. The most recent one was in RC, where over 30 people were killed while they were worshiping in two churches, St. Gabriel Church and also the Abbot Church. They went to worship, and gunmen affiliated with the government came in and they started shooting indiscriminately. Women, children, all of them dead. And they're still counting. So this has been happening again and again and again. The government has not stopped it and not making any efforts to bring those who have done this to justice. So it will continue. So unless something is done right away, unless we pass the legislation in the United States Congress So there's starvation tactics being employed on civilians, over 5 million civilians displaced, widespread accounts of rapes, 4.5 million students out of school, 10 million people in need of food aid, and billions of property damages. So what's happening in Ethiopia is really ethnic cleansing, deliberate target of Amhara civilians, genocide and crimes against humanity, indiscriminate bombardment, over 300 rounds of drone attacks in Amhara region targeting civilians, summary executions and mutilations of female freedom fighters. So when the government captures a combatant or someone who's a militia, they will, if it's a woman, they would mutilate. They would kill her right on the spot. But final, the Amhara militia, when they capture a prisoner, they will feed them, they will turn them over to the Red Cross. That's what happened in the past. So this is what the Ethiopian government is doing, it's just killing the freedom fighters. So they're also using hunger as a weapon of war. I want to show you this video. This is Ethiopian soldiers who have gone into a warehouse in Amhara region and they're destroying the grain. So the people in that village cannot eat. This is how brutal government soldiers wearing their uniforms. This just came out this year, I guess, just recently. It's very, very sad to see that they destroy the food because there's already a shortage of food. As mentioned before, almost over 10 million people in need of food. But the food is being destroyed. They're burning the food. There are other videos showing they're burning the food. And some of the food coming from international organizations, the United Nations, is being stolen and sold in the open market. You know, the United Nations had caught this and they have complained to the Ethiopian government. So this is what's happening in Ethiopia right now. So all of what we have presented today is documented and is by the United Nations, by Amnesty International, by Human Rights Watch, the Ethiopian Human Rights Council Commission, U.S. State Department 2025 report, BBC and the Guardian. U.S. State Department 2025 report documents widespread government violations of human rights, including extrajudicial killings, arbitrary detentions, crackdown on fundamental freedoms of speech, peaceful assembly throughout the country, with numerous reports of intimidation and restrictions on journalists, civil society members, human rights defenders, and opposition members, as well as several suspensions of independent human rights organizations. And some pictures of the devastation by the drones. In the middle is the women and young ladies who have been raped, violated. And there's another picture here with a little girl. Her mother was killed in front of her. She was left crying by herself. And this is what's ethnic cleansing looks like. So I'll ask to the US Congress to please pass House Resolution 937. It condemns the government of Ethiopia for actions that threaten regional stability and violate fundamental human rights. Calls on the Secretary of State to use all diplomatic economic tools, including sanctions, to hold perpetrators accountable. Calls for global Magnitsky sanctions against Ethiopian government officials, credibly implicated in gross human rights violations. Those who ordered the killing, those who carried out the massacre on Christians, and on civilians, on children. Supports independent international investigation into atrocities, affirms U.S. commitment to religious freedom, including protection of Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Grounds U.S. foreign policy in human rights, stability, and American strategic interests. Why U.S. policy change matters, providing economic cooperation or military assistance to the current regime will only enable further atrocities and deepen the humanitarian catastrophe. Continued partnership with the Abiy Ahmed government will fuel further instability, undermines U.S. moral leadership, destabilize the Horn of Africa, and undermines U.S. strategic interests, allows China influence to grow. While the U.S. Congress should pass House Resolution 937, strategic risk to the United States is prolonged instability in Ethiopia has created a power vacuum that may be exploited by terrorist networks, authoritarian regimes, and other foreign adversaries hostile to U.S. interests. The principle that U.S. taxpayer dollars should not support regimes or entities engaged in systematic human rights abuse or religious persecution. So in conclusion, the United States Congress has in the past has stood for peace, human dignity, religious freedom, and protection of innocent life. We appeal to the U.S. Congress, congressional staff to stand firmly on the right side of history. The U.S. Congress passing of House Resolution 937 is crucial to stop targeting of civilians. Therefore, we plead with you, members of Congress, congressional staff, to help pass House Resolution 937 and help stop massacre of civilians in Ethiopia, women and children. In passing House Resolution 937 sends a clear message. America will not enable atrocities. America will not abandon the vulnerable. America will lead for peace and justice. Thank you. I also like to thank Congressman Barry Carter's staff and all those who are helping to pass HR 937. Thank you.
If there are comments, questions, we have, I think, a few minutes.
So this like on a dictator, I guess. What's his religion? Is he Christian or is he Muslim, or what is his reason for persecuting Orthodox Christians?
That's a good question. Well, we don't know what his religion is. I think he has mixed religion, so he's practicing religion. We're not exactly sure it is. We know that he calls the God's name, he calls the Bible. But which sector of the religion he is, we're not sure.
What is his motivation for persecuting Orthodox Christians?
Domination. We believe it's domination. It's the Orthodox Christian has been the civilizing force for the country. Destabilizing the church is a strategic course we believe that he has taken as one way to divide and conquer in the country. And the Orthodox Church has been also considered as a uniting force that brings all Ethiopians from all sectors, sides of the country, irrespective of ethnic background, together in a leader that believes in ethnic dividing and ruling people on ethnic basis, ethnicized principled leader have an issue with an organizational identity that unites people. That's what we see is happening there.
So I think it's important to note that I think he finds the Orthodox Christian community more challenging to his power, so he's continued to do more damage, but he's also meddled in the Muslim community, and he's trying to find people who will be for his power. So really it's about control and being able to dominate the people. And I think that the one area that he couldn't was the Orthodox Christian, because historically, as Lily has shared, there is a strong foundation with history and things and a good foundation. So he wants to destroy that and be able to have total control over the people. So that's literally his intention is to make this up.
It goes across ethnicity. The Orthodox Christian, you don't have to be a Mara for that. And so there's a lot of Orthodox Christians and they are united in their religion. And then the other thing is, like I said, this is something that is 2,000 years old. That's a very long tradition of unity and being together. So he has to destroy that. If he destroys that, he will destroy that which keeps the unity. So I think that's his main goal.
That's why I had one thing that Abiy Ahmed has a background. His father is Muslim, and he converted to he says that he got converted to Christianity. His background is Muslim, very conservative Muslim background. So you get an idea of he has a grudge against Christians. If you're going to church, very powerful, story, and 65% of the population, 130 million people are from. He wants to control the country, and that's what he's doing. He is not only doing that, he's dividing the Ethiopian Orthodox along ethnic lines. That is very, very dangerous. Thank you.
But I do want to add a little perspective to that, because Muslims and Christians have lived in peace in Ethiopia for a very long time. In fact, Muslims came as for refuge to Ethiopia, and that unity was there the whole time. So I think part of what his prosperity belief, it's just a little. I think this question. I don't know whether it's really good.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Morgan. I am the co-chair of the Africa Working Group for the International Religious Freedom Roundtable here in Washington. I have a two-part question regarding the attacks against the Orthodox Church itself. First one is, have you been sharing this data with the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom? I'm asking that because they will be releasing their annual report on Wednesday. And second, regarding the same data, regarding this, have you been in contact with the State Department so that information could be included into their internet report on international religious freedom, which comes out every year?
Yeah, so the State Department has this information. I think they have as much information as we have provided. Most the 2025 report by itself has a lot of this included. We have also tried to reach to the committee. Actually, we have done one round of presentation a couple of years ago, and provided for the subcommittee, not for the whole committee. So yeah, and we have attempted to do that, and the data is out there. We're more than happy to provide it to them. Hopefully, the report that comes out on Wednesday will include these facts.
Yeah, I was just curious, before 937 was proposed, what I guess was passed prior or thought about or considered in terms of supporting Ethiopia, or what were the lessons learned from that?
The last resolution that passed was, I think, 2018, yeah. The House Resolution 128. Yeah, that resolution actually literally changed the trajectory of the dictatorship in Ethiopia. So the resolution, these resolutions are really, really great. So there is a precedence that these resolutions work, and that resolution has helped. You know, I know, Matthew. We have extended our thank you to the congressman, and particularly to you as well for maintaining this resolution. And we feel that passing the resolution, will not only be a hope for what's happening in Ethiopia, but also for similar situations happening in Africa. There are other African countries where nobody wants to go through a situation that religious persecution is rampant, and government bureaucrats steal money, come to the West and buy $2 million home in some suburb at the expense of some farmers and peasants live quietly thereafter. All that has to stop, and this has resonated. 937 has resonated way past Ethiopian community in the African continent as well.
So I'd like to add that it's really important that we get bipartisan support for this resolution. I mean, we're not indicating any political party or affiliated to anything, but it's just very, very important. So I'd also really encourage a lot of our Democratic participants to encourage their congressmen to support this resolution.
This resolution would allow the global Magnitsky Act sanctions against the Ethiopian government officials who are actually responsible for the massacre of civilians. So these same people who are committing this gross inhuman acts come to the United States. They have houses here. The kids go to school here. And they enjoy all the freedom in the United States while they back home, they're killing people, innocent civilians, because of ethnicity. So this was a powerful tool to tell them to stop, and if not, you can't come here. You can't buy properties in the United States. You cannot enjoy the freedom in the United States. So it's very, very powerful. It's happened before, it happened in Liberia and many African countries. It's a very powerful tool. So we just really need your help to help pass this House Resolution 937. Thank you.
Hi, I just want to say thank you all for being here. What you do is so important and so necessary. I know we just talked a little bit about House Resolution 128. When talking about the upcoming House Resolution, do you think that the government of Ethiopia is watching us? Do you think that this is going to be a big impact on how they are treating their civilians?
Yes, they are watching. They are watching. They are hoping that it won't pass. They are hoping that will be preoccupied with so many other priorities here, and they are concerned about it. And so that's why it's something that will be very helpful in the solution to so many of the problems. At least we get some part of our, what the Congress can do without much of to save some lives. Absolutely, they are watching.
And they are actively campaigning against what we're presenting to you. A lot of false narratives. They're trying to blame others. I think recently with the RC attack, they tried to blame it for the Al-Shabaab or something. It's just Al-Shabaab is not even there. So they're actively campaigning to cover up and make sure that the US and other countries are really not paying attention. So they are aware and they just don't want this to happen. So.
And the other thing is really, we have all the weapons and they are killing all these people. But it's a crumbling government. It's not a strong government. And their days are numbered and they know that. So something like this will totally destabilize them. So that's why it's very, very important to support this and also talk about it.
All right. If there is no other question, thank you very, very much for coming. Thank you for your time. And we'll be coming to your offices, and then we'll follow up. Thank you.
So which office do you look for?
Thank you.
Just one thing that was great.
Thank you.
Going out.